A stunning report out today claims that China is committing acts of genocide against millions of Muslims. The Newsline Institute for Strategy and Policy says it has clear and convincing evidence that Beijing is intent on destroying the Uyghur population. Some 12 million Uyghurs, mostly Muslim, live in the northwest part of China. Beijing has cracked down on the minority group since 2014 as part of their campaign of mass murder and imprisonment. The report says China's Communist Party bears responsibility for carrying out the genocide against the Uyghurs. Joining me now is Dr. Azeem Ibrahim, co-author of this new report. Dr. Ibrahim, great to have you on the broadcast. Can you describe the evidence that you found that implicates China for committing genocide against the Uyghur people?
Well, thanks so much for having me, George. Well, the evidence is actually overwhelming, and much of it is actually in the public domain. But we used extensive testimonials, victim testimonials, former detainees, over 10,000 of them, and we corroborated that with the Chinese government's own official policies, official mandates, and official diktats that arrived from the Communist Party. And we married them together, and the evidence is overwhelming that China is clearly in breach of the 1948 Genocide Convention.
Why is Beijing intent on destroying the Uyghurs?
Well, this is principally instigated by Xi Jinping himself, the leader of China. He himself is less of a communist and more of a Han nationalist. He is in the process of trying to signification of the entire country. And it's not just the Uyghurs that are Muslims, they are the most prominent ones, but there's actually other minorities too. There's Kazakhs, there's Uzbeks, etc. And even actually Christian minorities, they have a process of bulldozing down churches in China as well. So he's of the belief that the Han nationalism should be the prevailing ethnicity throughout China.
And part of that signification, we now know, according to your reporting, between 1 million and 2 million people are being detained in these internment camps across Xinjiang province. What is happening inside these camps? And I'm sure some of it is brainwashing, right?
It's complete brainwashing. There's lots of torture going on in these camps. Forced sterilization, which is actually a form of genocide as well in terms of stopping a group from reproducing. The separation, taking children away from their parents. So these camps are set up as education camps, but the reality is that nobody has full knowledge of what's going on inside. We only know from detainees, and there's no other way to describe it except exactly as you did, as concentration camps.
President Biden has described what's happening inside these camps as simply part of China's cultural norms of unifying and controlling this vast country. What's your response to this claim?
Well, that's certainly not true. Xi Jinping himself has instigated this, and they're using it as a mechanism to essentially wipe out Uyghur identity in its entirety. And they're doing this through multiple mechanisms, forced sterilization and separating parents from the children, etc. So this is not a cultural norm at all. This is a process of wiping out the entire identity of a people.
And when we look at it, thousands of Uyghurs are being moved from Xinjiang province to the rest of the country. Again, part of that campaign to Hanifize the country, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, Han Chinese are actually being moved from other parts of China into Xinjiang, and they're encouraged to, in many cases, forcibly marry Uyghur women to essentially dilute their identity through their offspring. So this is a very calculated and thought-out process from the state apparatus in China.
152 countries, including China, have signed the UN Genocide Convention. Do these countries, including the United States, have a responsibility to act against China in light of your report?
Absolutely. Every country has an individual responsibility itself to look at this and take its appropriate action. Every country is a state member of the Genocide Convention, including China, and they must act accordingly. Look, the reality is that the Genocide Convention was not there for academic discussions to discuss whether a particular incident was genocide or not after the fact. It is there to prevent. So it's up to the countries to take the appropriate action and deal with China accordingly. And that means not being passive and reassessing all its links with China is the absolute minimum that they could possibly do.
Okay. Dr. Azeem, thank you so much for your work on this important matter, and thanks for coming on the broadcast.